Hi all! Who doesn't love a great chocolate chip cookie? I, for one, am a fan, and so I've been researching for years and years to find the perfect staple chocolate chip cookie recipe. I don't really like a thick cookie and I don't really like a crispy cookie. I just like something in the middle, which is what I would call a perfect cookie. So I'm going to show you my favorite recipe that I've been using for a few years, and I'll let you know a few keys are to use a variety of chocolate, to use a lot of brown sugar, and also your vanilla bean paste, extract, actual vanilla beans. The quality of that will impact the recipe. So I'm going to take you along today while I test out switching the flour in my cookie recipe for fresh milled flour. I've actually done this before, but this is not what I normally do, and my recipe actually calls for all-purpose flour from the store. So we're gonna see if it can stand up to that, and hopefully it does. If not, I'll have to reinvent the wheel. So let's dive in. For the star of the show today, you're gonna need a heavy 1.5 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Then you're gonna cut up a dark chocolate bar and a milk chocolate bar. You can pick how many ounces those are. I will let you know as I'm chopping them how many ounces it ends up being. Here we have the milk chocolate and the dark chocolate, and it's 4.5 ounces all together. And you'll add that into the cookie recipe as well. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want 3 different types of chocolate and you want your cookie to not taste as good, you can do 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And then the next star of the show today is 415 grams of hard white spring wheat berries. I think you're supposed to use soft white wheat berries for this. I don't have a ton of variety of grains here, so we're gonna make it work with hard white, which just shows you can make it work with whatever. Then we're gonna do 2 large eggs. These have come a little bit closer to room temperature. They're still cold, but since they're closer to room temperature, that will help with the temperature of the batter. And then we're doing 1 cup of salted butter. And here there is 1 teaspoon of baking soda, sea salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And then one key for my recipe is organic vanilla bean paste from Trader Joe's. I use 1 teaspoon of this, and it has actual vanilla beans in it. Yum. And then I also use 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, which is in here. And then another key for my recipe is 1 full cup of packed dark brown sugar. It will make your cookie wonderful. And then, unfortunately, 1 full cup of just normal white sugar, which I know, not very healthy, but it will be a good cookie. So let's dive in.
Alrighty folks, do not preheat your ovens yet. This batter is going to be sitting in the fridge overnight. So for our first step, we're going to cream together the cup of butter, cup of brown sugar, and cup of white sugar. This step is very important. You're going to want to make sure you fully integrate it. So you're going to have to scrape down your KitchenAid as you're going, which, yep, that's frustrating that we still have to scrape down our KitchenAids. You'd think there would be a better way to do this, but that's okay. We will endure it and scrape it down to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated well. We're just happy that we don't have to do this by hand. So anyways, cream it together. Make sure you're incorporating air all throughout this step, and you'll notice a color change here, but you're really going to notice the big color change when you incorporate your 2 eggs and 2 teaspoons actually of vanilla. So I got that 1 teaspoon of vanilla bean paste and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So you can see already the color of the batter is getting lighter here, and after I scrape it down, it's going to continue to get even more light. You're going to incorporate a lot of air at this step just because you want your cookie to have structure. And you have to be careful though. You can overmix this and then it would cause separation. So don't do that. And I just get it to kind of the color that I'm familiar with and call it good. Then I'm getting my fresh milled flour out here. I just milled this so that I have all the nutrients still alive and ready for my health benefit. And I'm scraping or I guess brushing the flour off the lid and out of this canister to make sure I have every bit of flour, because I anticipated leaving some in the machine because it just eats some of the grams up, but I want everything that made it into the bucket. And I like to mix my flour a little bit with the back of my pastry brush because I found it better incorporates the germ, the bran, and the flour itself. And then before I even add the flour, do a little mix with my baking soda, baking powder, and salt just to make sure that's evenly incorporated throughout the dough. And then I do half the flour, mix it real quick, and the next half of the flour and mix it. You can see I scraped it down as well. Actually, I did that earlier, but now I'm adding in those chocolate chunks. I do chocolate chunks first so that they mix in better, and there's the little chocolate flakes that kind of happen because I chop up the chunks, so those integrate really well throughout the dough. Then I add my semi-sweet chocolate chips and mix that up really well. You're gonna really want to make sure you mix everything well during this step today because you're not mixing this again tomorrow. Tomorrow you're scooping the cookies and that's it. So you want your batter to be fully done in its final state before you put it in the fridge, because if it's not, it's going to be a pain in your butt tomorrow to try to get it to mix because it's going to be cold from the fridge. So yeah, I just mix it up by hand to make sure the chocolate chips are incorporated how I like them to be incorporated. And then I put some cling wrap over top of this to keep the moisture inside, and I put it in the fridge. At this point, if you wanted to, you could scoop your cookies out with your cookie scoop so that you don't have to let them sit out for 10 to 15 minutes in the future. But I did not do that. I like to just leave it because I find that the flavor is just a little bit better if all the ingredients can melt together overnight, but that's really up to you. It's not going to make a huge difference in the flavor. I just knew I had the time the next day to struggle with scooping it. So yeah, you can see here I'm struggling a little bit. So I scoop as much as I can, and then I use the heat of my hand to smush the cookie together. And then I form it into that ball, and I kind of flatten the top when it's on the tray, just so that it cooks evenly in the oven. And so I find temperature is key when it comes to using fresh milled flour. This is not a step that I do in the regular recipe with just all-purpose flour from the store. I wouldn't even actually let these rest overnight if I was using all-purpose flour. I just do that because it allows fresh milled flour to soak up moisture properly, and the fresh milled flour cookies require cold so that they don't go flat in the oven. Some people like a flat cookie. I don't. I like it to have some structure. So due to the finicky nature of fresh milled flour cookies with the mixed complication of making sure your butter is cold enough before you put it in the oven, I do let the cookies rest for 10 to 15 minutes on the tray in the fridge before putting them directly into the oven. And I put it directly from the fridge into the oven, which is not a normal practice. I would not recommend doing this with your cookies normally, but I would do it with fresh milled. And so since I've got the dough at a good temperature here, I'm just going to scoop the rest out, put this in the fridge, and this will allow me to just be able to plop these dough balls onto the tray whenever I can put the next set in the oven. I only put 8 on my tray. You can squeeze 12 if you feel like it. I just don't like it when they're touching. You'll see in the next clip, I throw a pizza stone in my oven. I preheat it in there while the oven's preheating, and I just have an older oven, so it helps to make sure the bottom coil isn't burning the bottoms of my cookie. So you can see the timings in my recipe description, but here I'm taking the cookies straight from the fridge, putting them in the oven for 4 minutes, and then I go in and I actually flip them and check on them at the 4-minute mark. I want to even cook, and then I will cook them for 4 more minutes. So about 8 to 10 minutes. I think I was adding on about 2 minutes after I even turned the tray in the oven, and I really try to hover around the cookies in the last 2 minutes so I can take them out in the perfect time. And you'll see a slight golden brown color coming in at the end. These are going to be darker than if you just use regular all-purpose flour. But I let them sit on the pan for 5 minutes before removing to the cooling rack, and then you're ready to eat them. They're great fresh out of the oven, but they're also really good if you microwave them for about 10 seconds the next day, and the salt will come through in the flavor the next day really well. So I hope you are able to enjoy.
All right, I filmed this earlier, but it was blurry, so now it's nighttime, so sorry if the lighting's bad, but I tried a cookie earlier. I tried quite a few actually, so I'm not gonna have another one right now. But I I'm super happy with how they turned out. I'm really stoked that they're thick enough, but also chewy, not too much like cake cookies, and they have a really beautiful golden brown bottom, providing a great crunch. So I'm super stoked with how they turned out, and it might be a little cringy to rank your own food, but I'm gonna give these a 9.0. I really enjoyed them. I think a little flaky sea salt on the top would have gone a long way, and I should definitely get some of that so that they can have that extra salty flavor to them. But I think even tomorrow, these will probably taste fantastic. I found that cookies are really good fresh out of the oven, but the flavor develops a little bit more overnight. So I really enjoyed making these with you. I hope you enjoyed it too. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you did enjoy it, and I will see you all later.